Another thing I realized too for my T side, and this kind of goes in hand with a problem I talked about before with inconsistency and just learning too many things, is that our T sides on most maps would they would just be too much defaults, like just too many options to do stuff. So then I would just struggle on to pick what do we start with. And what I realized is that I added so much strats and so much defaults and ways to take map control to the team that we didn't have a way of doing it against any team. Like, you know, a good like standard map strategy that you can apply to any team that you don't have prep work on. So like what I ended up doing was like I kept on getting more options of defaults, way to take map control, more options. So like I can be prepared for any type of team that we come across. Like this would be good against this type of team. This would be good against this type of team. And the problem with that is that we just come so good at like knowing more things that we can't pick one and run with it. We wouldn't have like a good standard way of approaching the map. And we'd always struggle in like the first 5 or 6 rounds on figuring out like what should we do. And we actually lose out on like a lot of conditioning that you can do in those 6 rounds and building up the map strategy. And what I realized is that you need to have a good map strategy that you can apply, that you can play, that covers most teams for every map, just a default way of approaching the map. So like an example, I guess the way I figured it out at this level of main is that most CT teams you play against are probably going to be pretty aggressive. Everyone in here is too cocky. So the best way to have like a good standard way of playing that just works at this level, this might change in the future, is to have a standard way of approaching the map of counter aggression. So like always staying in packs. Like just start off I just figured out starting off our T sides in packs against teams that we don't know, we don't have any prep work against. This works out better because if they do decide to aggress, we punish them for it. You know, if we're split default and we have like one guy going B off the start without any conditioning or any knowledge of this team, they might do a fast banana right away. They might do a 3-man heavy banana take, and now this guy's fucked and we just lost our first gun round. So it's better to like start off your T sides the safe way, and then, you know, you can start cutting corners. All right, now we can start split defaulting. They're pretty passive on B. Okay, we don't have to pack up anymore. Okay, now we go for fast banana. They're pretty passive. Let's start taking map control faster. Maybe we can contact car. They don't even play for that shit no more. Let's start skimping on util, play for a phase 3 exec, stuff like that. Then you can start cutting corners and, you know, building up. You know, you adapt over time. And the problem that I had with this team for a long time was just we had too many pre-planned things that we didn't have one thing to run, and we get beat by these teams that just wouldn't practice near as much as us. Like we would have so many strats that like a team that just had a good basic map strategy and they just didn't add more would beat us because they had that so ingrained, and there's so many protocols to their game just because they play the same way forever that they just could beat us. So if you have the problem of like too much, take a step back and, you know, develop a good basic map strategy to run, and then you'll find times when to spice it up with the other strats of like those weird niche things that you added eventually to you know, to really make your gameplay pretty dynamic. Because bro, we're in main and I have a 140-page long strat book. Does that make any sense? And we're losing to teams that don't have a strat book because we're doing too much. That was literally the problem. We were just doing too much. So you got to cut it back, find a good default way of approaching maps with teams that you don't have any prep work on. And then when you get into it and you start doing prep work, then you can change it how you start off the pace of the game. So like if you do prep work on a team and you see that these guys are generally pretty passive, we can be like, oh, okay, we'll start our defaults split because they're probably not going to aggress into us. Let's start off taking map control fast because there's no point in sitting around waiting for aggression if these guys aren't going to aggress, because their natural style is already going to counter your basic map strategy. So like the times that you want to like switch up how you play is if you have prior knowledge of the team, prior experience with the team, or if you have prep work against them and you know generally how they play, then you can start skipping stages of your map strategy or just do a whole different map strategy. But you should have a good basic one that you can apply to any team that you don't have any prep work against.